I've got this project file. I basically want to talk about how you go about making certain width decisions and my mindset for doing that. So I'll say most mixing and mastering engineers are following a very specific, like, upside down Christmas tree formula when it comes to stereo width. So the higher the frequencies, the wider the mix. As you go towards the sub, it becomes completely mono. Now, this is kind of what's followed for the most part ubiquitously for every mixing and mastering engineer. Personally, when I like to widen things, I want to widen things based on the actual instrument and not necessarily the entire mix or an entire bus. Sometimes I'll do it on an entire bus if the bus itself is a collection of instruments that I want to sound like they are the same instrument. All right, so I'm going to take off all the stereo processing on this entire mix. I'm going to start from scratch and we'll see how we end up compared to the original. Okay, so I've removed all the effects. Here's what it sounds like with nothing. So there are some stereo elements from the original sounds, but I removed all my extra processing. Okay, so the first thing that I would do would be to beef up the vocal here and make this vocal just way more interesting. So I'm going to use some default stuff. There's a really good live device called filter delay, which can add a lot of width to things with a lot of control. Normally, I'll leave the dry at 0 and I'll have my delays at maybe -8, somewhere around there. And I'm going to turn off the middle. So just completely have this off. And we're going to put it on 3s, and we have it panned fully left, fully right. So if we go to like something like 50 milliseconds or 60 milliseconds. What are you waiting for? And without it. What are you waiting? Super quick way to make it super wide. And I think I might actually like that over the initial delay that I had there. Now, I like to have the high end have a bit of ping pong and somewhere around 60, but I want the feedback to be quite low. What are you waiting for? It's basically like high end shimmer, sparkly. It's very subtle. So now we've got this here. Once again, we're going to use filter delay. Going to turn off the middle again and do something similar on this. Cool. Now here, this is a super background element and doesn't need much mids. And I think it actually will sound a lot better if we remove most of the mids and just leave the sides here. So I throw on an EQ8, turn it on to mid-side mode, and I'm getting rid of a lot of the frequencies here. And the low mids. Maybe I'll even completely low cut it. Remove some of the 1K, and I'll boost the high end here. Let's leave the high end where it was, and we'll boost the high end in the side. I like that. So this element should be more felt and not really heard. The side channel is more of a feeling. Obviously, everything is being heard, but it's more subtle in the side. So because a lot of reverbs add wideness to it, it's basically a delay. It's similar to the filter delay, but just stretched out over a long period of time. Now, if you want a song to sound more like an anthem, that big reverb to give the illusion that it's being played in some sort of like cathedral or massive stadium, that really helps. And one of my favorite plugins to do this is Valhalla Supermassive. I believe it's free. A lot of times I like to leave it literally on default settings and turn up the warp and turn up the density and just bring down the mix knob. And I generally get a really, really nice sound. So this is before. Throw it on there. I think it sounds awesome. Now that we have this, let's get an EQ8. And I'm going to put this after our Supermassive here. I'm going to switch it to mid-side mode. And I'm just going to boost around and see what I like. So the mids being wide and the high end being mono sounds really, really cool on this. And I think that's what I'm going to go with here. So just sculpting that frequency spectrum there, you can really go pretty extreme. I mean, I'm attenuating maybe negative 10 dB. Do whatever your heart desires. If it sounds good, it sounds good. Okay. All right, let's move on to the next thing. Did we do the bass here? No. So it does have a bit of wideness from the patch itself from Phase Plant, but let's make it a little bit wider. We'll use the filter delay again, and this time we'll keep it 1K area. We'll keep these lower. We'll bring the right channel up a little bit. And this is probably fine. Let's bring these -8, -8. Maybe actually we'll do -12 on this one and the mid channel because we're going to be getting some stuff from the left and the right. And then once again, we'll leave the dry completely at 0. Anything up below 50 is going to give you like that robotic sound, which you probably don't want. And I'm going to keep the feedbacks all the way down. So think of the upside down Christmas tree, the pine tree. You want the low end to stay pretty mono. There are some artists that like to make their low end very wide, like Porter Robinson tends to make his low end like super wide. If that's what you're looking for and you don't mind that, do it. But for good practice, I will say try to keep your subs pretty mono because that will make it so that all of a sudden your sub isn't completely gone in the car or in the club. The cool thing about this is now that you have everything in that reverse Christmas tree pattern, you can play with putting, some elements that are in the low mids to be a little bit wider, to emphasize those to make the entire thing seem a lot wider than it actually is. And so on these perks here, this like little break sample that we have from one of our sample packs, I have a plugin called Stereo Generator on here. So we can boost some of the mids here. Because there aren't that many elements that are wide down there, boosting this over here is going to sit it nicely in the mix. And just in case, we're going to put on the LAPC multiband here, and this is going to make it so that it's impossible for it to be phased. So here's like a little piano resampled and stretched and pitched around, and then I'm also using something from NASCO. It's called Prism, but it's basically pitch map. I want to widen this up. This isn't really a very important element. It's good, but it's like more of like a pad background element. So if we put on something like we'll use Valhalla Vintage Verb. Let's grab MAGC. And if you don't know what MAGC is, it's an automatic gain control plugin, and I've made a video about this previously, and it's super useful. So now that means no matter what we put before this MAGC, it's gonna still try to follow the auto pan's envelope here. So now, if we turn on, so I'm gonna remove some of the low end here, some of the mids here, and I'm gonna get rid of. And then I want to grab another EQ8, and I'm going to get rid of most of the mids. I'm going to boost the highs here. So this is kind of pushes it to a background element here. So this is kind of a main element here. It is a bit unruly, but I actually kind of like it. Now this plugin I have here is called Stereo Generator. It's basically doing something similar to the filter delay, but it's using some sort of dark magic, and I 100% recommend this. It's a super, super powerful plugin. Here's a cool trick that I like to use on some snares here. If you take a Haas effect and you put it into a group, so essentially you're making it a parallel chain, you lower the volume of both groups, maybe around 3 dB, you can get a very nice sounding wide mono compatible snare if we mono it. Without it. So it's super mono compatible. You can adjust how wide it sounds by just turning down the Haas effect, but having that in parallel really, really sounds good on most things. Now, I'm going to be honest, I think this new way that I decided to do this actually came out better than my original setup for this song. And I mean, this just goes to show that, like, if you're not happy with how your track is sounding, there's no shame in starting over, because it might just turn out better than it initially was. And after you get so bogged down in the production and adding effects and doing this and doing that and doing this, a lot of times you just get overwhelmed. It's hard to really make things work together when there's just so many effects going on. So removing all the effects that we're adding with and stereo, and then redoing it all, might actually net you a better result. You know, force a square into a triangle hole, try to get things to fit when all you had to do is start again. Hopefully this helped. Shout out Enki on the Discord. He gave me a couple of extra ideas that I want to do as well. Look out for that. Subscribe, like, go download our free packs. Go buy our paid packs if you like them, obviously. And make sure you download the LAPC multi-band rack that I'm going to drop in our Discord now. Peace. What are you waiting for?